College basketball season is back, and between Indiana and Purdue, the greatest basketball state in the country is fired up.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and Boilermakers. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Nick Arvin of Locked On Boilermakers. Thank you so much for making both of our shows your first listen or your first watch every single day. Today's crossover episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Well, today is fully college basketball. We won't make Nick talk about football since, we know how that's going at West Lafayette, but we are going to talk about the Big Ten, and I think this conference could be one of, if not the best in college basketball. Plus, we'll kind of compare those season expectations. Purdue's thinking national title, Indiana's thinking the tournament. But Nick, the best season of the year is here, and college basketball is back.
Yeah, Jacob, you've been talking football because finally, Indiana, they've got the football team to operate. Purdue, we can't say much of the same. A little bit of a letdown this year for the Boilermakers, but I'm excited for basketball season. Purdue, they're the number one ranked team in the nation. Indiana, didn't see them in the top 25, but we're here. Whatever. The week is here. I've been waiting all off season, all football season, quite frankly, for basketball season. And it's a big year for Purdue, for Indiana. I know you guys got a new head coach trying to kind of get things figured out this year. But in my opinion, college basketball is best when both of these teams are good. And I think that when both of these teams are good, the rivalry is better for it. So I'm excited for a good year. And I'm excited for this state to really get into the swing for basketball.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue has been consistent for quite some time with Matt Painter there at West Lafayette. And look, even when the teams aren't the same, whether that's the same good, the same bad, whatever. I mean, look at last year. You had these two teams split in a year that Indiana missed the tournament. I mean, that was a year where Indiana fires the coach, the entire roster leaves, and now you've got a complete overhaul. And that's the difference, right? We'll talk expectations coming up in just a little bit, but you look at these two rosters. Indiana, you kind of have an idea of what we have with scores and some defense and a bunch of transfers. Purdue's got two dudes on the betting list to be players of the year, and they're tied with Houston to win the national championship.
Yeah, Purdue, they're going to be really good this year. There's a lot to look at, and it's kind of easy to get lost in the talent of a Braden Smith or a Trey Kaufman-Renn, because those are two guys that they're looking to be All-Americans this year. Braden Smith, so much that guy has in terms of accolades, building a legacy in his senior year. So it's easy to get caught up on that. But what people don't really talk about is this team's ranked number one because of the depth that they have. They bring back two very talented freshmen from last year in Jakari Harris and CJ Cox as kind of the fifth and the sixth men on that team that can really fill in defensively. And you also have Fletcher Lawyer, who's the third senior with those two guys who can really shoot the ball. So Purdue has a lot more pieces than what's at the surface level that I think that a lot of people are going to find out about throughout the year. For Indiana, Jacob, I do want to ask you about this. With a new head coach, you guys kind of overhaul the team from where the Mike Woodson era was. Where do you kind of see that going in terms of personnel, in terms of just the players that are going to be suiting up on the court this year for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a collection, right? But it's a collection of brand new guys. There are 0 returning players from last year's team. And look, that's tough to overcome. That's tough to kind of, I'd say bounce back, but it's a new staff. It's a new coach. So you're not really looking to bounce back, but that's tough to start a season with, right? With no cohesion, nobody knows each other, and you're trying to figure it all out on the fly. Now, good news is Indiana was able to go to Puerto Rico, play some exhibition games, do that trip that you can do every few years. So they were able to do that. And then you played 2 normal exhibition games. You beat Baylor the other day. So you've got an overhaul, yes, but you've got some serious talent. Lamar Wilkerson was a top 15 scorer from Sam Houston a year ago. You bring in Tucker DeVries, who of course is the coach's son from Darren. And you have a collection of guys that you're unfortunately trying to get healthy right now, which is not what what you want to hear at the start of the season, but you have some overseas kids too that I think are going to be a lot of fun. And I think Trent Sisley, that's a name that Boilermaker fans need to know. He's the freshman coming in, the lone freshman from high school. You got a couple of European kids, but the lone American high school freshman stepping in, he's going to be an impact player. And I think he has the chance to start at some point this season in Big Ten play. He's one you need to keep an eye on for the Hoosiers who can make an impact. But that's the thing is it could be Wilkerson one night. It could be Reed Bailey one night. It could be Tatum Connerway one night. There's so many different options that I think Indiana's going to have. You just got to figure out how you're going to play together. But I also want to tell Purdue fans this and just college basketball fans in general. This team's going to look different for Indiana. No more are the days of dump it down to the big man. We'll score 65 points and go 0 for 12 from 3. This team's going to be a whole lot different, Nick. If you get down by 10, you at least have a chance. This team's going to run. This team's going to shoot, and it's going to be so much faster than it was under Mike Woodson. And I'm hoping that that puts Indiana in a better spot to make the tournament. I'll flip it around to you. Are we going to see the same style of Matt Painter team, just slow and go until you wear your opponent down?
Yeah, so it's really interesting that you bring that up because that is a good point. Purdue, they played Kentucky, which I think is going to be one of the most athletic, fast teams, just like you talked about in terms of getting out in transition. So they had that test. And honestly, Purdue, it was an exhibition, so you can't hold it to the same level as a game that's going to happen in the regular season. But they didn't look good playing against that fast offense. And I think that's something that Purdue, they're definitely going to be able to work on and improve throughout the year. But I think it just goes to show that that is kind of the approach. This team's going to be a lot better in the half-court offense, getting it done with Braden Smith, stretching out that floor with your shooters. I think that when this team is shooting the 3 ball at an elite level, they're going to be hard to beat. But the issue is you can't shoot at a high percentage every single night. So whenever you're not able to do that, you have to make up for it defensively. You got to get back in transition. And that's something for Purdue. I think they're certainly going to work on to become a more fast team. But as we stand here, the start of November, I don't think that Purdue necessarily runs you out of the gym. I'm not saying that they're not a good team because of that, but that's just not the approach that they've developed yet. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to be their identity offensively going throughout the year.
And these two teams have completely different expectations. I said it at the start, and we'll say it again. Purdue, they expect to win the national championship this year. Indiana, just trying to get their feet underneath them. We'll talk about those expectations, plus look at the schedules and how these two teams could meet those or exceed those right after this here on this Locked On Crossover. This Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Boilermakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So whether it's NBA, college basketball, football season still here as well, FanDuel is the place to be. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com right now to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back into the Locked On crossover, Hoosiers and Boilermakers. Thank you so much for making us your go-to spot for all things Indiana and Purdue athletics. Make sure you subscribe to our respective channels on YouTube. Drop your thoughts down in the YouTube comments as well. Do you think Purdue wins it all? Can Indiana turn it around with a new head coach? And what happens when these two teams get together twice this season? Plus, if you're listening on any of your audio platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, however you find us, support us there, follow us, and thank you so much for truly being an everydayer. And we talk about expectations, Nick. And these aren't ones that you and I are setting for these teams. For Purdue in particular, it's one that everybody has set for the Boilermakers. Our friends at FanDuel say this. Are you ready? I know you've looked at it. I know you've talked about it. Purdue, as it stands right now with the season just getting underway, Purdue and Houston share the best odds to win the national title. Purdue is a heavy favorite to win the Big Ten championship. And you've got Braden Smith with the odds-on favorite to be the player of the year. It doesn't get hotter than that if you're Purdue, and it doesn't get more pressurized if you're Matt Painter.
Yeah, so you talk about people setting the expectations. It's not just us, but it's also not just outside factors. Those expectations are being set by Matt Painter and by the players. TKR, he talked about it. They have it written on the whiteboard in the locker room. It's a championship or bust mentality this year because when you think about these seniors, they've seen everything. They saw losing to a 16 seed. They saw making it to the championship and just barely losing to UConn. So they've seen everything, but they haven't seen a national championship. That's the one thing missing. So that's certainly the goal that's been set by these seniors, by Coach Painter. And I feel like anything less than that, I hate to say it's a failed season, but it's not going to feel good at the end of the year. It's not going to feel like this season was a success because when you think about that kind of era of Purdue basketball with Zach Edey, with Braden Smith, with Fletcher Lawyer, this is really kind of the end of that era. So for Purdue fans especially, they want to see those guys end off their college career with that national title. It's all that's missing, and the guys that are playing for Purdue, they know it just as well as the fans do.
Can I ask you this? With James Franklin being fired at Penn State on the football side, is that a fair comparison? Like, are we allowed to make that same comparison that James Franklin has been or was at Penn State for over 12 years, or I think he was in his 12th year? They felt like they had reached the ceiling. He got fired. Is it safe to say that's what's happening with Matt Painter at Purdue basketball?
I wouldn't say that. I think that his job is secure no matter what happens this year because the thing about Purdue is they've had only 2 coaches in like 40 years. Gene Cady, he was there for forever. That was before my time. But then, of course, Matt Painter, what I grew up with, he's been there. So Purdue, like I said, they've only had 2 coaches in decades. So it's like a generational thing at Purdue where they don't really get rid of head coaches. And Matt Painter, that man has earned, I think, a lifetime contract at Purdue. He was an alum. He played at Purdue. He kind of transformed that team. I understand that, like, in the current college landscape, it's so easy to get guys on the hot seat, especially in college football, like you said, where James Franklin, he's winning games, but just can't get it done in the postseason. I understand the perspective of the national championship. That's absolutely the goal. But like I said, for Purdue, they kind of operate in a different way. They are not going to fire Matt Painter.
471 wins all time at Purdue, just 215 losses. It's a pretty good resume. It's a pretty good record there, but you're talking all these expectations of a championship and All-Americans and Big Ten titles, and Purdue has earned that right. But then you flip it around, right? And you start coming back to Bloomington and talk about what Indiana has going on. It's like, well, we've started over. We cleaned house, and we're back to square one with Mike Woodson gone. And my goodness, what a disaster. I mean, it on paper, Nick, it sounded good, right? Indiana was in bad times. You go get a former player. He was beloved by Bob Knight. Everybody was like, all right, cool. He failed in the NBA, but it'll be fine. He'll work it out. He'll figure it out in college, right? No, it was bad. It was really bad. And it was bad on the floor. It was bad in recruiting, as you guys have taken advantage of. And it was just not good. And so Indiana had to clean that out again and completely restart. And you go get Darren Devries from West Virginia. He's feisty. He's hard. He's a guy who's going to come in and set the standard, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And so, look, I think Indiana is in a weird spot because how much time do you give a coach nowadays in college basketball? We see all the time, right, in football, especially right now, year 3 is kind of it. It's like, all right, you get year 3 to make something happen, but it's year 1 for Darren DeVries. So lofty expectations, not really. But I think realistically making the NCAA tournament, something that Mike Woodson couldn't even consistently do in his short time. So I think the NCAA tournament is fine. Get some wins in Big Ten play, maybe pull off another upset over Purdue. But I think Indiana fans will be just fine.
Yeah, I'll get back to kind of your take on that. I want to get back to something that you did bring up. I don't want to stray too far, but you brought up recruiting. I thought it was an interesting note, and really kind of when Mike Woodson left, it was like the recruiting. I don't mean to say that Indiana, they don't recruit the state of Indiana, because you guys just landed a 4-star. Where is he from? He's not from Indiana, but small forward.
No, he's from Arizona. He's from the
Arizona.
Midwest originally, but he's in Arizona
Okay.
playing prep school right now. Yep.
I got you. Yeah. So I'm not trying to say that Indiana can't recruit or that they're being out recruited, but when you think like historically, Purdue wasn't a team that would recruit high guys. They would get like 3 stars, 4 stars. You think about Zach Edey, he was a 3-star and they turned him into a 2-time National Player of the Year. So that wasn't traditionally what Purdue did, but now we see Purdue has a top class in 2026. They brought in several guys, including the 2 top players in the state of Indiana. So Purdue really doing a good job at recruiting this state. And I would say that they have full control over it right now. You talk about the La Lemure pipeline in terms of that prep school where Matt Painter gets a lot of guys out of. What can Indiana do in this new regime to kind of turn the tide and to start recruiting this state a little bit better?
I mean, focusing on the state would be nice. I mean, you're right. I mean, Mike Woodson it just didn't seem to be all that important to him. And I think Darren DeVries is going to do that, but he also has connections across the country. And I think you would agree with this, Nick. In today's era, yes, it's important to still hit the state home, right, or the home state with Indiana and even the surrounding states of Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, right, Wisconsin as well, going to get some of those kids. But and in this era, you can go get anybody you want, especially with the transfer portal too. But yeah, simply put, Indiana's got to focus on the state of Indiana, and you got to start winning some games. I mean, it's why would you have come to Indiana in recent years when you could go to Purdue or UConn or Kentucky or Michigan or all these other places? And now in this era, we're losing kids to Ohio State because they're taking football money and paying kids to play college basketball. It's really, really tough. But Indiana's going to be just fine. Indiana doesn't have a money problem. Indiana doesn't have a recruiting problem. They've just had a head coaching and a losing problem, and they're trying to fix that right now with Darren DeVries. So it's a great question because it's really hard to recruit against Purdue. Again, we're talking about Purdue being the national title favorite, and Indiana's just trying to make the tournament. It's really hard to recruit against that, and Indiana's got to start putting some dudes in the pros too, which I know Purdue is focusing on.
Talk to me about money for a bit, because that's been a big topic for Purdue fans, where our basketball program has no concerns about the money that it's given. But for football, with the new rules where it's the $20.5 million salary cap, you have to figure out what percentage goes to what program. And for Purdue fans, they feel like the football program isn't really being given the full necessity that they need to rebuild a program, right? Because of all the funds. And I'm not saying take funds away from the basketball program. I don't know what the solution is, but that is kind of the reality of the situation, is that the football team is, I think it's the least funded Big Ten football program in terms of percentages. So for
Purdue
Indiana,
is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
I could be wrong, but they're definitely towards the bottom. I think they're last. But in terms of Indiana, when you guys get a guy like Curt Cignetti, you want to say, let's go all in on football, but you guys have a historic basketball program. What's kind of the balance like that? What are you guys operating within those new rules?
Well, I mean, before Curt Cignetti, it was pretty much the same thing that you guys were dealing with at Purdue. It's like, well, we're not going to invest in football. Yes, it's making money, but it's not really the focus. But then you go get a guy like Curt Cignetti, and maybe you guys have found one at Barry Odom. I guess we'll find out. But it's the idea that, all right, football is starting to win, and Curt Cignetti came in and said, hey, I want this, this, and this, and you're going to give it to me because I just won a lot of games. And Indiana did. And Indiana, they didn't fold, but they gave in, and they paid the guy $11.6 million. But Indiana basketball, money-wise, is just fine. But what the Hoosiers are not going to do, and I think Purdue's in this same boat too, Indiana and Darren DeVries have already kind of put their foot down, Nick, and they've said, what, we're not going to pay outrageous money for top 10 recruits for 1 or 2 and done type of guys when we can go take that money. I'll give you an example. Anthony Thompson, he was a top 10 player. He just committed to Ohio State about a week ago. Indiana was in on him and probably was in the lead until the first or the final decision day, and Ohio State doubled, if not tripled, their offer. Indiana said, we're not doing that. We're going to take that money and go get 2 or 3 kids in the transfer portal who can make a bigger impact next year than just one player. That's the reality of the sport. That's the name of the game now, is you've got a budget. You've got to determine your ROI. You have to figure out which players fit your system and how much are you going to pay them. And I hate it. I don't know how you feel about it. I hate that that's where we are, but that's Indiana's mindset. I'm fascinated on what Purdue is going to do.
Yeah, much of the same. Matt Painter, he's really kind of focused on building this program up the right way. And we talk about how historically they haven't recruited some of those top guys. More of the same. Matt Painter, he's not going to recruit a guy that's one and done. He gets Owen Meyer, who is one of the top international guys. There's some people saying that he may go into the 2026 draft. But I feel like if Painter was worried about that, he wouldn't be on the team. I think that Meyer will stick it out at Purdue because Matt Painter, he's very intentional about finding guys that are going to stay, that want to play for Purdue. So that's something that historically he's been great at, and he's a great retainer. That's one thing that people don't talk about when they talk about head coaches, and Matt Painter may be the best at it in the nation, is retaining guys from year to year. I think that's why the program is where they are, and I think that's why they're number 1 ranked in the nation right now, because they did retain those high-quality guys that are going to be key players for Purdue this year. I'm sure we'll talk about the Big Ten here in this next segment. Jacob, do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm ready to talk about the conference because I think it's really good. I think it's really deep, and I think it could be the best in the nation. We'll talk about the Big Ten as college basketball season is back. We go over the conference and who could be a threat to Purdue right after this.
College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at the checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. With no surprise fees, what you see is what you pay. Do you want to make it out to Mackey this winter? Maybe make it out to Bloomington? Well, you can absolutely do that with our partners at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football or basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Against that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Game Time today.
All right, final segment on this Locked On crossover. He is Nick Arvin of Locked On Boilermakers. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. And now we zoom out a little bit, Nick. We talk about the Big Ten because I believe it. I think this conference could be the best in the nation. I think it will be similar to what we saw a year ago. Top heavy, best teams at the top. I just don't know if we can compete with the SEC top to bottom. Man, they put 14 teams in the tournament last year, Nick. I mean, how in the world do you compete with a conference that does that?
No, I agree 100%. I think that the Big Ten teams that are at the top are better than the SEC teams. But I think when we're talking about the amount that are going to get in at March, I think that the SEC could have like 12 or 13 teams again this year. I don't know if the Big Ten is going to be able to get to that number. But when you talk about the top teams in this Big Ten, I'm sure we'll talk about it. But Michigan playing right now, they're very under the radar. I think that they can be good. We got Illinois with Brad Underwood, who has a million international guys on that team. There's some question marks over there. Ohio State, they have a lot of potential. There are a lot of teams this year in the Big Ten that I think can be very good, that can be top 20, top 10 teams, but there are question marks because we are still early. We haven't seen them. There are a lot of new guys. So it's a very exciting time in the Big Ten. I think that the Big Ten is not lacking talent. This may be one of the most talented conferences that we've seen in at least a couple years. So I'm excited for this year. I do think that the SEC brings more teams come March, but I think when we talk quality, there's no conference better in the nation than the Big Ten.
Yeah, Joe Lunardi at ESPN. And take this for what you want to. It's bracketology in November. There's not a whole lot of stock in this. but he does have the SEC and the Big Ten tied at 11 teams to make the
Oh, wow.
NCAA tournament,
Okay.
which is incredible in itself. If the SEC, again, wasn't coming off an historic season, it'd be a little bit of a different story. Here's what our friends at FanDuel say, just in terms of Big Ten betting odds for the Big Ten title itself. Well, maybe I'll read them all. I don't know. Purdue, Michigan, UCLA, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Oregon, USC, Iowa, Indiana, Washington, Maryland, Nebraska, Penn State, Northwestern, and Minnesota. So any of those teams at the top, I'm thinking top 5 or 6 could win this conference. I want to ask you, though, since Purdue is the odds-on favorite to win the title, which team right now, there's a lot of season left, but the season begins right now. Which team in the Big Ten do you think is the biggest threat to Purdue to win the conference championship or possibly win that national title?
I mean, it feels like the easy answer, but I have to say Michigan. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got that guy Yaxel over there, and he's impressed.
Kid's a beast. He's a
I know.
beast.
He looks
And
he looks
Dusty May's
really,
so good. Good for Michigan for paying him, man.
Yeah.
Good for them.
They look really, really good. I'm not a Wolverine fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I will give them credit. They did a good job. Dusty has done a great job over there of getting that program back into the top 10. And like I said, that guy Yaxel, he can straight up ball. I think he's a mismatch for almost any team that he's going to play this year in terms of his length, his ability to get down the floor. Very explosive guy. So I would say Michigan, they beat Purdue last year in the Big Ten tournament. I don't know in terms of like the Big Ten tournament, how serious Purdue's going to take that one compared to the big dance, because you have seen certain coaches take those conference tournaments less and less serious over the years. I have my whole own take on that, but that's neither here nor there.
Different show.
Yeah, different show. I don't love that, but in terms of Big Ten tournament, I definitely think it's Michigan once again. In terms of March, in terms of the big tournament that everyone plays for, I don't know if Purdue really has anyone to worry about in terms of Big Ten teams. I think what Purdue is going to have to worry about is just putting their heads down, not listening to the outside noise, because it's the biggest crapshoot in all of sports. You have to play perfect through 3 weekends, through a whole month of basketball. And it's so difficult to do. There's so much randomness in that. I think if Purdue is able to limit that external noise, I don't think that they're going to have any trouble in the actual tournament. I think that they're prepared for it. I think that they've worked for 3 years for it.
Indiana and Purdue this season. Of course, they'll play twice, as they always do. Purdue comes to Bloomington January 27th. Indiana goes to West Lafayette February 20th. And I believe, I looked at this on the calendar the other day, and I'm going to do it again as we're talking. I don't think either one of those days are a weekend game, Nick. The game where you guys come to us is a Tuesday night in January. We come to you guys on a Friday night at West Lafayette. Who'd you pay at the Big Ten to get a Friday night game compared to us getting a Tuesday game in Bloomington? Come on, Nick.
Yeah. The Friday is definitely the better option. I don't like the Tuesday, but I'd like one of them on a Saturday.
Yeah,
I mean, I have memories of like Saturday, Purdue, Hoosiers basketball, watching it. That's something for me that I would have liked. I prefer that Mackey got the Friday night. So, I mean, that's kind of tough luck for you guys. But in terms of this matchup, I think it's going to be fun this year. A lot of Purdue fans, they say that they're just going to blow Indiana out of the water. And I feel like that's an easy thing to say, the rivalry and all that with Purdue, with the expectations as high as they are for this year. But in reality, there is a question mark around Indiana. Nobody, and I would say even including you, really knows how good this team is going to be this year. So for Purdue fans, for me, it's difficult for me to stand here November 3rd and say that Purdue is 100% going to go into the hall, to go into Mackey and just blow out the Hoosiers. But as we stand right now, I do think it's going to be difficult to see any team that really beats Purdue and that can find consistent success against the Boilermakers.
Yeah, well, good news is we have a couple of months to figure it out. And by the time these two teams come together on January 27th, we will know a lot about the Boilermakers and the Hoosiers as college basketball season is finally back. Look, Hoosier fans, I tried to talk football in this show, but Nick said he wasn't coming if I
No.
brought it up anymore. So we'll talk about this again in a couple weeks where, funny enough, Indiana comes to West Lafayette and it's a Friday night for football as well. Funny how that works out, huh? First time ever, by the way, that game's played on Black Friday. I just think that's convenient that it's on the road. But I digress. We'll talk more college basketball at a later date, and we're so excited to have the season back. He is Nick Arvin of Locked On Boilermakers. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, subscribe to our channels on YouTube. Follow us on your audio platforms and make sure you never miss a new episode where we talk all things Boilermakers with him and Hoosiers with me. We are back for another episode tomorrow on our channels, folks. So until then, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.